I remember as I trekked up the snowy cliffs of Mount Everest.
And I went miles and hiked and up, and then got to the top and realized I forgot my curling iron.
Oh my God!
Don't you hate when that happens? You're going up the mountain and you get there and...
What do you look like?
I know.
I know.
I can't do that because I only got 12 hairs and they're behaving at the moment.
Yeah, I know. And we just showed you how not to start a book, which is today's topic on this episode of
The Real Entrepreneur Show with
Patty Pokerchuk, small biz sales coach. I help grow businesses, and you do?
I am Kathy Barthel from Take on the World, and I'm a book editor and a copywriter and all things word nerd.
So this episode really hits home for you.
Yes.
And for me as well, because I've written a couple of books. The most recent that took 6 years in the making, The Axdale Farmer, Adventures of a Serial Entrepreneur. So I talk from fairly recent experience. And these are writing scars you do not see, but we'll be talking about them.
Well, you know what? I love how that is, and this is another example of a book that I edited for a doctor, and it's got all kinds of, heavy-duty writing in here and lighter stories and footnotes. Can be any kind of book that you want to do, but Patty speaks to an important piece there, which is that it took 6 years.
Ooh.
This is the first piece we want to talk about, which is the whole structure, bigger picture thing,
the
right?
dreaded P word, planning.
Yes.
And always, when you hear about these, we can write a book overnight or yesterday. It's you get what you get what you pay for, but you also get what you put your time and effort.
Exactly.
You can write an ebook overnight. Yeah, maybe 10 pages, 20 pages. But, to write...
That's going to be a tight night, too.
Tight night.
Honest to goodness. But the point is true. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, as Patty says, it can take 6 years, it can take 6 months, it can take whatever. It's going to take longer than you think. Mm-hmm. So plan accordingly.
That's right. And the first thing is the structure of the book, right?
Yeah. And even before that, right? The thing about who's it for and what am I writing about? And
what's your why?
Yeah.
Why are you writing? What's the message? Who's the target audience?
Yeah.
Will they pay for this?
Yes, and don't go too narrow. We all hear about in the entrepreneur space as a business owner, right? You've got a niche. Don't niche so much that you've got, the gnat who lives under a rock, who lives under a tree, who lives under your bed.
The vegan dogs. Vegan dogs would be a topic that.
There you go. How many people does that serve? So when you're planning, think about that. Think about telling your story authentically, not, because that's the A word.
A word.
But telling a real story and thinking about who that's for, and then thinking about the overall structure and really putting time into planning out all those sections, those chapters, whatever it is.
What are the lessons in each chapter for the person? Yeah. So say you wanted to write that book about vegan dogs, but that's way too narrow. But you could talk about holistic ways to raise your dog.
Yeah.
So different ways of, what kind of different food, what different kinds of instead of taking the vet and giving them chemicals and medicines is how else.
How to make your own dog food. There could be a lot of different interesting chapters, and think of the subheadings, right? You might have 2 or 3 ideas. Well, what one is going to be the main one, and what is the supporting idea? So take the time to do all of that ahead of time.
It'll serve you well when it comes to the actual writing.
Exactly.
Which to me was the easy part. That was for me at least.
Well, probably because you did the planning well. In anything, you put the time in the front end with the planning, and then when things come up and the hiccups come up along the way, you can handle them a lot better. Right?
That's right.
And then the next piece is accountability.
The get her done part. My middle name, get her done.
Yes.
Which is accountability is to actually, then comes the grind of actually filling in 2,000 words per chapter, which is it's kind of the going. It's about 2,000 words on average per chapter, which, 25 chapters gives you 50,000, which gives you a book of about 150 to 200 pages, depends on the formatting.
Yeah.
So, and so there's different ways. So I actually started a book writing club where we met every week virtually, traded chapters, got feedback, held us accountable. There's nothing like peer pressure.
Absolutely.
And
there are a couple of there's a couple of other ways, and even in that book club, you might have an editor or someone functioning in that way in that group as as peers.
We had a book coach for the first 10 weeks.
Exactly. Oh, I love your segues, darling. Mm-hmm. Because that's the piece I wanted to talk about. Today, you will often find what's called a writing coach or a book coach. And that in a traditional book publishing sense might have been somebody who was called a developmental editor. There's somebody who looks over the big picture and helps you put all the pieces together. So it's either an editor, it's a writing coach, it's a writing group, but get the accountability.
You get somebody who's 2-in-1 because the next step is actually editing a book, and somebody like Kathy actually is a book coach and an editor. And editing, you cannot. To me, that was the hardest part, because you edit the edits, you edit the edits, and and then until you're like really like version 5. It's like by that time you're ready to vomit this book out. You're so sick of it.
Absolutely. And this is really just to the first point you made. The piece that I also bring is that I used to be a magazine photo editor. So I have that visual part of my brain that not everybody does. So make sure you get somebody to help you with the visuals and how it all looks. But the other piece is the whole aspect of an editor. And a lot of people, just to make sure this point gets out to anyone thinking about a book, typically, if you haven't written a book, you think the editor is the person who fixes your pronunciation and your spelling, and crosses all those T's and fixes all those typos. That's only one level of editing, and it comes at the very end.
Yeah.
So an editor does a heck of a lot more than that, and you want to investigate that. And the last piece to talk about is a proofreader.
A proofreader.
Is what happened to you, Patty, just quickly?
Oh, I actually, because of deadlines, I had to get my back done. And yes, there's a typo. Yeah, there's one letter that's wrong. Yes, live a life without regrets. Live a life.
Live a live.
Live a live.
Live a live without regrets. Live a real live.
Oh, it was being a real. But it just, at the end where you've got a deadline, you just got to get her done.
But the piece is, and fortunately there's another edition of Patty's book, and that's been fixed. But it goes back to our first point.
So
Plan.
Embarrassed.
We're so real.
So embarrassed.
We're glad she's real, because this is an example of what happens sometimes.
When you don't use a proof editor.
A proofreader, but also the planning. Because sometimes you get at that point, oh my God, the book launch is coming and I'm not ready, right? Pad that schedule out so that you have more than enough time.
Yep.
And there's another piece that we're going to talk about in the next show,
which is all about marketing. Because you thought it was hard up to this step, but it really is worth it, because it gives you so much credibility to say that you're an author of. It just, when you see all those people at conferences, it's them and their book cover, and book cover is the most important part. But we'll save book marketing for another edition.
I want to tell them the one little thing, Patty, that I always tell people. This is a great way to sum this up. Remember this, if you remember nothing else as a business owner having a book, your book only gets one chance to make a bad first impression. First impression. Right? Whether it's a typo on the back, whatever it is, you can't go around every day with that piece making excuses for it.
No.
So plan, get accountability, get an actual editor, get a proofreader, and next week we're going to talk about marketing.
Yay!
And we'll see you then.
Stay real. Bye.